I'm Sam Taggart with Can't Knock This, host of the first ever Door-to-Door Con, bringing professional collaboration to the direct selling and door-to-door industry. Go register your seat for our event, January 2018 at doortodoorcon.com. Today we have Steve Bond, who is a real estate expert, investor, and developer. He has done over $500 million of real estate deals over the last 11 years and has really built an amazing portfolio and an awesome structure on how to get into multifamily units. He has literally taken from nothing to over $300 million in the last 3 years, and he's now sold out for the next 2 years on all of his projects because he's built such a profitable, honest, and awesome business model that really attracts great investors. He is a speaker at Door-to-Door Con, and we look forward to learning more about real estate investing at the event. You know, a lot of people ask the question of like, okay, I made a lot of money, now what do I do with it? And everybody, I guarantee you at one point or another in this has, you know, I do this job so I can one day invest into real estate and then not have to work and have monthly income off my rental income, right? And so if you're listening or watching this podcast is for you if you're like, okay, but how do I start? You know, what are the best tips and strategies and, you know, things to do as far as getting into real estate? So Steve is like, honestly, the expert. I personally have 8 units through his company, and they've been the best thing. I just sold off my own single-family homes just due to the fact I'm like, I need to save up more so I get more of his units because he has a really unique way of doing it. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of started into real estate and a little bit of your story.
Yeah, first of all, well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
What a cool time.
It's New Year. Happy New Year. First of the year. Start of the year.
It's just awesome. I mean, to think about the kind of goals that people have in the door-to-door world of building up wealth and creating a lifestyle for themselves and their families. What a better time to think of it than like right at the beginning of the year. How are you going to crush it in 2018? What are you going to do that's different than 2017's ideas and dreams? And maybe you crushed 2017. Awesome. Like kudos.
Yeah.
But how can 2018 be better? And I think that's always the goal that I have. My goals are a little different than other people's. It's just improvement. I just love to improve and to make things better than the year before. And then I'll put some specifics to it, but I just like to see growth and development and improving on things. So,
do you have any specific goals you'd like to share for 2018?
Oh, man. Jumping right in. 2018 goals, really, we're just trying to increase the size of our company. We're trying to introduce 2 new states of our multifamily development. So right now we're in Utah, we're in Idaho, we're in Texas. We really want to get into 2 new states, and we have our boots on the ground in Arizona right now and in Washington, and we have land tied up in both of those states. And so, you know, fingers crossed if we can get the developments to go through the cities like we want and get all the pieces to line up and the stars to align, then we'll be in 2 new states as well. And then already working in 2018 for 2019 and 2020's goals, we've already outlined our growth chart for the next 5 years, and what we need to do is we have to get into a couple new states every year, and so we'll be defining what those states are and new markets as we go into the year.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's dive into like how you got into real estate.
Yeah,
what's
bet.
your story?
So it's actually a really interesting story. So I, as a teenage boy, just said I'm never going to pay rent, which, you know, financially isn't really the absolute best advice always for people, but in my mind it was. I was not going to pay $1 in rent. And I deceived myself by saying that paying lot rent wasn't rent because I owned the mobile home. That was my first real estate purchase. So we bought a $10,000 mobile home. I thought I had signed my life away to pay that $10,000 back. But I had my motorcycle, was newlywed, my bride, and she was going to school, and I was going to put her through school doing carpet cleaning and own this mobile home. And so I had a real estate experience. I had a realtor help me out. Buy that mobile home. Then we ended up selling that mobile home, buying a townhome because I had several job changes and started making more money. And the market was going up and up and up. I kept on making a lot of money in this real estate deal. I made money on the mobile home, made money on which is absurd, mobile homes depreciate, but we made money on it. And then made money on the townhome. We made like $60,000 in 7 months. It was a really good buy. The market was going up. And then relocated to Washington from St. George.
What years were this?
This is 2002 is when we got married.
Okay.
In 2005, we got a townhome. Then we moved up to Washington 2005, bought another home in the Gig Harbor, Washington. That's where we lived. And so I had these real estate experiences, and quite honestly, I had really poor experiences with realtors. Communication was bad. They weren't calling me back. Their marketing I thought was a little lame. And maybe I just picked the wrong ones. But I started to learn that the ease of entry into the real estate market wasn't that hard. Take a couple classes, get a license, and you can be a realtor. And so that kept on kind of putting a burr in my saddle, kept on making me think, I really want to get into this. If they're making this kind of commission, then I think I want to do that. And I love real estate. It's been a passion of mine. I want to build a real estate portfolio. Eventually I want to do development, but I had no idea what any of those like wants meant.
Yeah.
And so we lived in Seattle. The job I was at, I was a district manager. I managed about 50 employees in 8 stores of a rent-a-center.
Okay.
And it's like the armpit of retail.
The armpit.
And it was when I would tell people what I did, it was actually kind of embarrassing.
Hey, we can all relate to that. What do you do? Well, I'm in sales. Yeah. Well, what kind of sales? Door to door.
Yeah, exactly. So, I get sweaty and knock on doors and somehow make a lot of money.
Now I own it. I'm like I ride a scooter around in a neighborhood and sell people stuff. It's pretty cool.
It's perfect. That's great. So, I did that. I made good money, but I just didn't like it. It wasn't me. It wasn't fulfilling me. And so we sold our house in Gig Harbor, Washington. I decided to go and grow up and try and get a degree. And so
what stopped you from doing that in the first place? Like you got married and everything before even getting
I had no schooling really. I had a semester of college, which is sad because my wife married me thinking I was pre-med. But then I went to school and it was boring, and so I dropped out. So after one semester, I went from becoming a doctor to working at this company and moving up. And
hey, but 50 employees under you at a young age. I mean,
24.
That's big.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of company. I mean, sadly, if you have any kind of integrity and work hard and a little bit of people skills, you skyrocket to the top. You could practically be the CEO in a matter of 5 years because it's starved for quality employees. Yeah. So anyway. I digress. I apologize. So anyway, we moved back to Utah. Neither of us are from here. Moved to Provo, Utah for the first time. I've never lived here, and started at BYU. And that same week, I got my real estate license. And so we moved here September of 2006. Got my real estate license and started BYU January of 2007. We had just had our second child, and jumped into this world of only commissions and full-time student. And luckily, from the real estate deals we'd done in the past, I could go about 18 months without making a dime, and we would still survive. We would just be tight. But it allowed me to approach it from the aspect of how do I want to build a business, not just be a realtor and make commissions, but I really wanted to build a business of real estate.
Yeah, because a lot of people get their license thinking, I'm just going to sell some homes.
Exactly.
You're like, how do I make a company out of this? So initially, that was the vision from the get-go. It wasn't like I was a really good realtor, and then I saw another guy making good money in a business. It was like, no, I know a business is the route.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I spent about $10,000 before I made a single sell, building up an entire brand. I had campaigns of marketing campaigns. I had built out a website because what I had figured is that clients have bad experiences because they only get someone that wants to make a commission.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to work with me and feel like they dealt with a business person that made their life better. That they could trust that, man, they couldn't have done it without me because of all of the stepping stones, the communication, the market expertise. I wanted to be someone different than what I had experienced up to that point with other realtors I'd worked with.
But that's an important principle in sales alone. I mean, you think about it, we sell anything from solar to, alarms or whatever. And a lot of times we don't take the perspective of okay, what if you bought an alarm from yourself?
Yeah.
How would that experience be? Are you kind of getting sold on just this idea and then the guy's gone and never see you again? Or is it because that's my first time buying real estate. I don't think I've ever told you this, but my first home, I actually have it on the market right now. But The guy was a complete scumbag. Like, he lied about the zoning. He never returned my calls, and it was just like I get calls. It's like, hey, this, like from the city 3 days later. Hey, this is illegal. We're gonna have to kick you out. I'm like, I just closed on this thing, assuming rental income. Like, and I'm just like, oh shoot, like this isn't good. And I call him. He's like, oh well, it's not that big of a deal. Like, everybody does that. And he like hangs up, and I'm like, and I call him back. Nothing. I'm like, honey, we just signed a mortgage and totally was misleaded on how this whole thing's going to go down. And it really put a bad taste in my mouth, similar to you. It's kind of funny that we have that same thing, but it's a principle in sales. It's like, what are you really trying to serve the customer on a different level that makes you unique than everybody else? It's just the salesperson.
And are you willing to walk away from a deal that's not good for the client?
Yeah.
A lot of managers may say you never do that. You got to get the quota. You got to do another sell. My perspective is you find the people that need your product and you sell to those people.
Yeah.
You don't need to sell anything, because reality is if you service people and find enough ways to fill people's needs, you'll never want for income, because people will be attracted to you because they realize you're authentically there to help them be better.
Huge.
And so I tried to take that approach. I walked away from sales. I was willing to walk away and say, no, that's not good for you, or tell a client you really can't afford that, or that's not a good deal. And it was amazing how many referrals I got from people, where other agents were constantly buying leads to build their real estate business. In my first year doing business, I did over 30 transactions, having no network to start. Broke six-figure income as a full-time BYU student, and I really feel like it was because I authentically, truly wanted to help the clients, and I tried to provide solutions. And a good chunk of my business was already from referrals, where I didn't have a track record.
That's crazy. Well, and it's funny because I think most of your business still operates that way, right? I mean, you're sold out for the next 2 years in all your projects, and it's like most of that you pretty much sold itself, it sounds like.
Yeah,
that's
correct.
Cool.
I mean, a lot of our latest projects have been, we actually don't even take it to market. We don't go on the MLS. We simply call through our database and say, we've got something new coming out. Would you like to participate? Give them the data, and then they say yes or no. So new clients coming in, not that we wouldn't love to grow even faster, but right now we're trying to figure out how to scale our growth. We have major issues that we're trying to figure out, because we can sell a product a lot faster than we can build it, because it's a lot more complex.
If you're listening to this, it's like, that's a really good problem to have. You know what I mean? In a sense of like, it's a terrible problem, but it's also like most companies are the opposite. It's like, how do we get more customers? How do we get more customers? And it's like, if you do the right principles of building your business on, integrity and adding value first, your business should grow naturally. Yeah. So that's cool.
Well, and the second you have to tell a client you can trust me, like, that's when the trust is gone anyway. Like, you should never have to tell a client that they should trust you. Or if your marketing says something about honesty on it, like, there's some problems. Like, just simply do what you say you're going to do, and if you cause a problem, because we all do, like, we all just simply fall on our face at times, just fix it. Just own it and fix it best way you can, and just make it right. And it's interesting, when I was in real estate school, you sit in these classes back then. Now you can do it all online, but when I got my license in 2006, there were classes, and then there was VHS tapes you would put in to watch them at the school.
What's a VHS? Yeah, I was just kidding.
Not this big.
Oh, those things.
Yeah,
I'm just playing.
Yeah. Anyway, so in these classes, these guys that were like top producers that were teaching the class said, you can plan on, if you're really hustling and doing a lot of business, about one lawsuit a year, so just get a good attorney so you're prepared for it. And I remember thinking, that sounds stupid. Like, if I'm in a profession where I should be a professional negotiator and a problem solver and helping people, why would they ever sue me? One, I should be able to solve the problem or own it and fix it, and I should just talk to them. I don't think they would have to get an attorney ever. And quite honestly, in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate business that I've done, I've never had a lawsuit.
Wow.
And I've never even had an Arizona emissions claim on a contract, and I've made plenty of mistakes. We just fix them when they come up.
That's awesome. So kind of tell me how it shifted from, being the realtor selling 30 deals that year to like, okay, I'm running my business. I'm going to start in the investment side, the multifamily side. Yeah. Like, how'd you get into that?
There were several steps along the way. So traditional problem in all sales is greed. we all want more for ourselves. I really believe in like the golden rule, like when you've got enough for yourself to like turn back to someone and bring them into your place. And that sounds very benevolent, and in some ways it is, but it actually is quite selfish as well. It's creating a path. If you're someone that can set a course and make a wake behind you, then go and keep forging forward and unemploy yourself. And that was my goal, is I unemployed myself out of every position. I used to work with buyers and sellers, and I said I don't want to work with buyers anymore because I had a young family and we had kids and church callings and going to school full time at the time still.
You're trying to figure out their schedules and listings.
I only had so much time, but I had more business than I had time. And so I thought, if I can unemploy myself from working with buyers and get someone I trust and can develop that can work with my clients that want to buy, then I can focus on working with sellers, which is far less time per commission. And so I brought someone in underneath as a buyer agent. And then I started to look at investment opportunities before we founded Fig, and saw that there was a lot of opportunity in the multifamily market. And so then I turned over my listings to other agents that did the listings and the buyers. And I think that's a lot how it works in door-to-door, right? You stop going door-to-door and you develop people that can really be successful at door-to-door, but you have to be willing to say, man, I can take a little less of a commission because I can multiply myself and other people benefit.
Yep.
And if you can't create win-win, then get out of the game.
Yeah. So you started looking for real estate deals or listing. You said this guy's for listing, this guy's for buyers, and then you started just investing the money or returning the commissions into.
So then I started just focusing on selling multifamily properties.
Okay,
so I no longer work with a normal seller. I would just work with fourplexes and multifamily properties and help this partner of mine, Mike, as we went out and entitled properties and bought developments, and then we would sell these multifamily properties. And so I had my residential business that I had built going on the side. By this time, I had dropped out of school. I actually never graduated, unfortunately, but kind of fortunately.
No, but I'm glad that you said that, because it's like, I went back to get my degree at BYU, and I would say a lot. It's funny because a lot of these podcasts, one of the questions I ask them, it's like, well, did you ever finish your degree? Because you'd be surprised, many of them have dropped out. So
I have like 20-something credits left.
That's right where I'm at. I've got 20 left. So maybe when we're like retired, we can both go back to BYU or UVU.
Exactly.
Or something.
I'll get it at some point. Get that. I call it the granny degree. It's like a Bachelor of General Studies you can get online.
Oh, that's
one of these days when I just feel like it, I'll go back.
I have my associates, and I take pride in that.
There you go. You got a degree.
I have a degree.
Yeah.
I have my associates.
Well done.
Yeah.
So, what was the question?
Oh, so I was asking, so how did you get into like the multifamily, and then...
Okay.
Well, actually, this is a better question. Tell us about your first deal, like that you bought, and you're like, I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to keep this fourplex or duplex or whatever it was. Like, how'd you... Okay. When was it time to be like, okay, this one's mine?
It's interesting. So, the first one that I bought that I still have to this day as a rental was actually the one when we relocated from Gig Harbor down here to live in Provo. I just went on realtor.com, looked at townhomes, and saw one. We bought it sight unseen, and it's just south of campus. We looked over at a bunch of stuff. Some realtor went and kind of did all the work for us, and he was pretty good. He was good at communications.
You were a realtor at this point?
No, I was not a realtor at this point.
Yeah,
this is when I was up in Washington.
Okay.
And so...
Oh, yeah, because you don't rent.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, wow, we're going to move to Utah.
Yeah, I had no
renting.
job lined up. I had
awesome.
nothing. I mean, it was just like, we're going to buy that. And so we bought it sight unseen, moved in, totally smelled like dog pee. That's the one thing that I wish the realtor would have said, like, hey...
The pictures didn't show you that?
Yeah, no, not at all. So we had to replace all the flooring, and my wife was like 7 months pregnant at the time.
Oh, and her senses are all heightened.
Oh,
she's
it's
just
horrible.
Like, you're like, it's not that bad, honey. She's like vomiting.
Exactly. It was horrible. So we replaced all the flooring, had that baby, then I got into real estate. But I've kept it, and it's been a really good cash flowing townhome. So that was my very first one. My first multifamily deal was interesting. It was a previous client that lived in Orem. And he just called me back and said, my mom had a fourplex that she wants to sell. Will you help me sell it? And I went out to his place to do the analysis, and he said, Steve, just get me $250,000 for this fourplex. And I turned to him and I said, Dennis, like, I can get you $315 in this market. Like, you can get a lot more money. But if you don't want to deal with it being on the market because you really like these renters, because he was really concerned about that, I'll buy it today for $275. And then
more than what he was asking.
More than he asked.
That shows a lot in your character, because it probably would have been really easy to be like, oh, fine, I'll take it for $250.
Yeah, and take a commission.
Yeah.
Like at $250, he was expecting to pay me a full commission.
Yeah.
But I was like, $275, you take the commissions out. You'd make a little more if you just had me sell it, and I made a commission and paid out a commission to the buyer agent. But if you just want to be done and know that, like, I'm going to close on it, I'll take it for $275. He thought about it over the weekend, called back, he's like, Steve, buy it. Like, that's great. $25,000 more than I wanted, if there's no commissions, and so we bought it. Ends up, like, we did some tweaks to it, we rearranged some of the floor plan layout, increased rents. It's now worth about $465,000. Wow. And that was just a few years ago that we bought it. And so that was my first multifamily deal. That was back in 2010. And now, I mean, from that time, I've set out this very aggressive, like, trying to acquire as much property as possible. So that was my first fourplex. Now, by the end of next year, when everything's built out that we have in the pipeline, I'll have over 70 units that are under management and owned by us. So
that's awesome. So you just buy your own, pretty much.
I just buy my own
inventory. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'll take that one. That's a good one.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So let's say I'm a brand new guy, and actually, before I ask this question, because this is a good question, but I actually want to ask, you got your license in 2007.
Yeah.
2008 hits. What goes through your mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, what you just saw just happened.
Oh my god!
That's exactly.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what's happening?
Exactly what I did. So I was going to classes. I came back to the office. So I would sit in classes and like be emailing clients and texting them and trying to listen to what they were saying. I was building the business.
Yeah.
So like the class was secondary to building a real estate business, but I did it. I even managed a 3.0 GPA, which I'm pretty proud of.
Go 3.0. Yeah. Seized degrees, baby!
So, anyway, so I remember the day. I literally remember the desk I was sitting at was on Freedom Boulevard, and the day they announced AIG, and there was like pictures of people being walked out of offices because there was issues with integrity, and it was scary. I sat there and looked at my computer screen and reading like the taglines on the bottom and what that meant for the economy, because it was like this tipping point that went from like, oh, the market's correcting and getting negative to like, the market has fallen out.
Yeah, it's like
no one can trust anyone. The stock market's tanking. Lenders, banks aren't lending, and even the insurance companies are failing that backed all of this as well. So it was just a total like crap your pants moment. And I sat there and looked at the computer screen, and I just took self-reflection. I remember asking myself, like, are you going to do this? Are you going to commit to trying to figure this out?
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of realtors and real estate people were like, I'm out.
Mass exodus.
Yeah.
It was mass exodus, and I'm 1 year into my business.
Yeah, it's like an easy time for you to leave at that point.
Yeah, 1 year in, full-time student, young family, like still just trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. But I just said I'm going to do it. And I just made the decision, like, I'm going to figure this out, and things have got to still happen. I'm like a little bit of a starry-eyed surprise. I always see the glass half full. There's always an opportunity. I can always figure it out. And so once I decided that I was going to see it that way, then I just went to work and went to do that. And I had to reestablish, like, what was I a specialist in? It was no longer like how to just get a deal for someone. It was how do foreclosures work, and what is a short sale, and how can I be the guy that people turn to in this new market of short sales and foreclosures? And so I went back to educating myself, and I went to classes and seminars, and I invested and like doubled down. I spent a lot of money trying to improve my skills, and every year since the day I started real estate, I've made like double-digit returns higher than the year before. I've never gone down.
Yeah, and that's a crazy principle for life, though. I mean, it's not every day 2008 hits, you know, somebody's life, but it inevitably, like, we have challenges where we get punched in the face and it's like we want to just give up, and it's like, dang. But it's that moment of like, I either quit or I double down and find my specialty. I like that, where you're like, I found what my niche was, and I started adapting to that market and figuring out, okay, everybody's selling now and they need to get rid of their house. Like, how do you do the foreclosures and short sales? And that's cool. Like, I'm always curious, because it's like my father was actually in real estate. He did a lot of land development like you, and he's done, you know, one of your deals. Yeah. And, you know, just watching, I was in high school at the time, and I just remember, you know, my dad, it's funny, he's like, we moved to California in 2004, because of land development. My dad's like, hey, let's go buy lots, right? And he's like, we'll buy up farms, turn them into lots, sell them off to developers. That was like all he did, right? So we moved there in 2005.
Oh my goodness.
And this is California. Yeah, bought. Like, all he would do is go, and he was really wealthy. We grew up in Park City. Like, he was an entrepreneur. He did Deer Mountain. He did, Pilgrim's Landing in Lehigh. He's done tons of big land development deals. So I grew up, like, knowing real estate. Like, that's, like, how we survived. And so we moved 2005. We moved to California and, start buying all these big, huge farms and subdividing them and selling them off to developers. And I think for a year it was like, yeah, we're doing good. My brother made some good commissions. He started working for my dad. And I just remember, 2007, because California hit a little prior.
Oh, yeah.
It was like
Utah was about 18 months behind everyone around us.
Yeah. So it hits, and I just remember my dad was like, dude, we would have made more money had we played golf every day in California than what we just did. And, the whole purpose of going to Fresno, like when my dad in high school was like, yeah, we're moving from Park City to California. I'm like, oh, sweet, mountains, beach. Like, sweet. Little did I know, I'm in the armpit of California. It's hot. It's like nothing. It's like, this sucks. But anyway, it was fun. It was just like I just watched my dad and how he had to adapt and like all the pain and just like his whole life upside down, you know what I mean? And so that's why I was wondering. I was like, how
those were incredible lessons. I mean, it taught you as a professional to see things beyond today. Like every decision I make today in business has a horizon of 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm looking out to a trend, not just to like, how do I make a buck today? Because a lot of times when you're only thinking of how you make a buck today, you're also planning on spending that buck tomorrow, or you're spending tomorrow's buck today, and that's always a big problem.
And one thing that's made you unique is your multifamily structures is meant to weather a storm, right? Yep. It's meant to, like, that's the whole reason I invested in it. It's like, okay, there's got to be another crash one day. We're high, right? And, but that's the thing, is investing smart, because I think a lot of people, they get in this habit of like that. It's like, I need to make money fast so I can spend my money, and I need to, I want this and I want that. But it's like the patient journey that, an investor really needs to have, and thinking 4, 5, 10 years down. And it's like, well, if another crash happens, people need a house to stay in.
Yeah.
So they're going to live for rent. They're going to lose their house and go look for a place to rent. And that's what makes your model so sustainable, right?
True. I mean, that's our entire game plan, is to create sustainability. And, people are going to make a lot of money and become rich by themselves when they invest in themselves and put themselves to the highest and best use. Because when they do that, they make a lot of money. Our goal is that for the person that makes money, to help grow their wealth that's passive. And so we create strategies that it's going to help that hard-earned money that they were so gifted at making, to help double and triple that on the side without any effort on their own, essentially, anymore. And so, but you got to have that first investment in yourself to become valuable in your own trade. So
let's say I become valuable, make good money, I'm investing in door-to-door, I'm managing a team, and it's like, great, I got a good back end. This is the question, this is where I was going with this, is like, how do I get started, and why do you think real estate is a great place to put your money, and what are some tips and advice you'd give kind of that first-time investor that's like, scared, and they're like, that's a lot of money to put into a house, or whatever, right?
Exactly. Well, first of all, I mean, think of who the President of the United States of America is right now. Mr. Trump.
Exactly.
Right? He has a real estate background. If you look at the tax changes that have just taken place, passive income and those incomes that come from real estate are treated tremendously well. You can show losses on properties that you're actually getting cash flow from. And so the benefits of real estate ownership as an investment are so tremendously high. You put it just in a stock where you have capital gains, you don't get shelters in place for those gains. You don't get depreciation in place for those gains. And you also don't have the ability to really see that market and how it's going to trend from a long-term horizon, because especially like technology stocks, they can get swiped so quickly with patent issues and legal issues or a competitor. Whereas real estate's just a little more stable. And so because of that, I wouldn't expect to have, an Amazon stock run on real estate where you're going to have 200% and 300% returns really quickly. I wouldn't have that expectations, but I wouldn't also have the expectation of it doing that same thing in return. I'm going to expect around 10 to 20% consistently on this asset if I buy right and manage correctly. And so your question is, one, why, and then two, how, right?
Yeah.
So I think I explained the why. There's going to be great shelters for your asset growth. There's something that you can control, touch, see, feel, and you can also become an expert at it. Stocks are very emotionally driven. There's some pragmatic facts to them, but real estate...
Because if you're selling and buying, you're like... Because that's what happens with me. Every time I do stocks, I'm like, oh, it's crashing, it's sell. And it's like, oh, it's going up, let's buy that one. It's like,
exactly. And you're not really looking at like EBITDA.
Yeah,
you're not actually really looking at the nuts and bolts of this organization.
I get screwed every time. Bitcoin, terrible. It's been awesome, but it's like, gives me a freaking heart attack every time I open up my phone. I'm like, no, don't look at it.
Exactly. So, which is a fascinating topic. I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but real estate, I mean, it takes a while for that trend to play out. It doesn't just crash. And even 2008, it crashed at percentages per month, not massive overnight, because it can't.
Yeah, it'd be impossible.
It's just too big of a market, and there's also bodies and lives that are involved. Someone that lives in a home isn't just going to all move out overnight. A whole city doesn't move out overnight.
Yeah.
Those kind of things don't
Unless
happen.
It's Detroit.
And so you
I'm just kidding.
And so you can hedge against that. You can actually kind of protect yourself in that way. Okay, so but how I would get started is I would first become a master student of what topic of real estate you want to be. So do you want to get into commercial? And commercial can be anything from land leasing to buying a quick mart on a corner to buying an office building or a strip mall to big warehouse offices. There's so many categories. And so in real estate, I don't want people to get overwhelmed, but the reality is you can find something you're really passionate about and it doesn't really matter. Just become a professional at it.
Yeah.
Learn the trade of that. If it's multifamily, which is my bread and butter, that's what I absolutely love. I know a lot about it. I pour into it hours every single day of research about it. And it's not just because I want to buy more or because I want to sell. It's because I want to know everything about it. And so someone that's going to get into it, I would recommend getting on Bigger Pockets podcasts. Get on their website, join their forums.
Bigger Pockets?
Yeah.
Biggerpockets.com?
Biggerpockets.com.
Okay.
And if you're going to get on their podcasts and their website and their forums, the mentality of giver's gain is massive.
Oh, really?
You get out far more than you put in, but if you don't put in anything, you rarely will get out anything as well. And so you want to go on there and be helpful to other people, offer suggestions, network with people, get to know people, and then see how you can help them in the process. And when you do that and you put yourself out and offer advice on the forum, all of a sudden people start reaching out to you and doing the same thing.
Cool.
And
what other books?
The other one is, I really love The Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Okay.
That's a great one. Good to Great is just like an absolute Bible of business.
Yeah, it's like a foundation.
If you don't have that one read, you're just missing out. Like, it's got to be known. The Good to Great principles are just fantastic. And then Apartment Investing with Michael Blank, and it's spelled blank. That podcast I listen to regularly. Just love the guy. He is a true giver of information, and his whole goal is if you want to get into wealth creation and multifamily, how to do it within 3 years, do your first deals with little to no money down, and to own apartment complexes. And it's through a term called syndication. And so we could talk for hours and hours and hours about just that one topic. But the fact is you just want to become a student of what you want to do. And syndication, the principles of syndication can apply to office, land, warehouse, multifamily. It has a place in many aspects of real estate. And so it gives a way for a guy that makes, $80,000 a year to become a professional at a niche market, to go and study it out, find the deal, cultivate the deal, get a good attorney involved, raise capital, and become a percentage owner in a 50-unit apartment complex.
Wow. And
all they have to do is just become good at that, and they could be a part owner of a 50-unit apartment complex with no money down, just time and investment into the process. So
that's cool. Yeah, because a lot of people, it's like, they just want to have like a very simple, here's 50 grand.
Yeah.
I'll be a small percentage owner of a big thing.
Well, like with yourself, you've bought multiple deals. Now, in your world, you're surrounded by very successful door-to-door guys. Yeah. Some are managers, some are still knocking, anywhere in between. They know that you're succeeding at real estate, so what do they say to you?
How do I get into real estate?
Yeah.
You want to go into a deal together?
And no offense against those people, but a lot of times it's you did all this homework and time and like pain to truly understand it, and meeting with people and taking time that not everyone either has or wants to do. And so they'll just default and say, I trust you, you've done it, like just let me ride your pig, like jump on your coattails and ride along with you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people willing and wanting to do that with people that they can trust. And so you first just have to become the person who understands what sector you want to get into, and become the professional and become the person that people trust.
Cool. So what would you recommend? Let's just say I had 50 grand.
Okay.
And just giving a hypothetical here. I only have 50 grand. I've never bought any real estate. Let's call me a single dude. Okay. I don't care to like, maybe I'll live there. I don't know. It's up to your discretion. What direction would you go with that 50 grand?
If I was that guy, I would not buy a mobile home again.
Not the $10,000 mobile home? Okay.
No, they're really not good investments, but it worked out. I just got lucky. Excuse me. If I had 50 grand today, we started from bare bones scratch, I would do a term called house hacking. And what house hacking is you own or occupy an investment property. So something that has the potential to have as many roommates as possible if you're a single guy, and you buy it, and everyone else pays your mortgage plus profits, essentially. So you're investing into that. Excuse me. Buying your first deal, whether it's a duplex, triplex, fourplex, or just a nice home.
Could you buy a fourplex, live in one of the rooms in one of the units,
and
still put very little down?
Absolutely. It would have to be something that's existing. You would have a hard time doing that with new construction because the banks just want more percentage down payment, and the prices don't make that math work. But you could get a duplex, triplex, or fourplex in today's market, and with $50,000 down, an owner-occupied loan, live in it and rent it out to all your friends or just tenants.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then you're getting your first deal, and what's great about it is you put that first money down, but you have such massive amounts of return because you don't pay any money from that point forward, and you're getting equity gains as well.
So how does that financing work? Because one thing that's really unique about us is we're all 1099, right?
Yeah.
So a big thing that a lot of people, when they go to get into real estate, they're like, yeah, I got my 50 grand, I'm gonna go buy a house, and then all of a sudden they get stumped with the financing part of it because they have to show, supposedly they have to show 2 years of history or whatever. I don't know. What have you found as far as advice on how to finance that, or let's say talk on that for a minute.
It's a great question. So the reality is you're going to have 2 years of history.
Okay.
And so you either have 2 years of history or you co-sign with someone else. So you get another buddy that's in the same shoes, but he or she's been doing it for more time.
Okay.
That 2 years, because your 1099 has to be in place. The other option is to go out and you don't need anyone else and you go seller finance. And that's a great deal, but you have to find the right owner, and so it gets a little trickier. This takes some door knocking persistence where you go and find owners, and I call them the sleepy landlords. But it's this old couple that they manage this fourplex. They've owned it for 40 years, and it's like their entire retirement. They usually don't want to sell because that income is what they want, but they're tired of going and fixing the leaky roof or whatever call happens because they're just getting older. And so you take that sleepy landlord and say, look, I know you don't want to pay this capital gain at this point and just get taxed and then not have income. So instead, can I buy it from you and will you sell or finance it? So you'll still be getting a payment and not pay that massive capital gains right up front because I'm going to be paying you, and you only pay on the gain that you receive every year.
Oh, okay.
And so they say, well, that's great. I've got income and now I'm no longer a landlord. And
That's
they're making
cool.
interest on that sell as well. You offer a little higher interest than the bank will offer, so maybe you're at 6% interest, but you don't have to jump through all these hoops anymore, and it's win-win. So you find the sleepy landlord and do a seller finance deal.
So another big question a lot of people always have is, how do I find the deals, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know what's a good deal? Where do I go find them? Like, I don't want to just go on Zillow and buy something that's crap and get screwed, you know what I mean? That's always a fear of people getting into their initial thing. So how do we set expectations, or first off, and then how do we go, like, what's the best place to look, and how do you go about finding those kind of deals?
Exactly. So, first of all, probably just don't go to Zillow at all. It's just full of bogus information. It's just not accurate. Tap yourself into a realtor or real estate professional that you just really trust. Get someone, and you'll pay a commission, but you're buying years of experience in someone that's trustworthy and knows the market. And you need to
It's
be...
funny, my dad actually had that same advice. He's like, Sam, because I was like, oh, why would I pay 3%? I can sell, I can negotiate. Like I'm a winner, right? And my dad's advice, and I mean, he's been in real estate a long time, was like, they make their 3% worth. Like that's why they get the 3%. They'll, either find a better deal than you would find, or they would have the information and that 3% is made up in the work that they do.
Yeah. It's interesting. I look back to my experiences and those that I had that were bad. And it wasn't that agent's fault. It was my fault because I didn't take the due diligence to find out who was a good agent in the beginning. And you can do that as a consumer now. And I would recommend it to someone that's getting in the business to either sell or buy, is interview and know that you can say no. You don't just work with a buddy or some guy that's living down the street or goes to church with you. Work with someone that's a professional, really good at what they do. And they'll be worth their weight in gold. I mean, they truly will help you, and they'll advocate for you, and they'll actually be able to bring value to the table far above what they make. And that will be their mission as well. They'll want to do that. So cool. You get aligned with a real estate professional that's going to help you out with the deal. The other way is to look at estate sales, because when someone's passed away, usually there's a remainder estate or a home that's there that you want to go and pick up, and the family just wants to let go of it. And you don't want to take advantage of them, but find win-win. Say, if you go before you list this, my buddy who's an agent will just do this for a flat 3%, then you don't have to have it on the market, and you shave off the listing side of the commission there. And also, you can negotiate a better deal because they don't have to worry about waiting, and you work out a deal with someone that's just passed away. Divorce sales are also good, so you line yourself up with divorce attorneys, and when there's divorce, sadly, there's usually a house that has to get sold as well to make ends meet for the couple that's kind of redefining their new life. Another way is expired listings for sell by owners, or you can go on and just simply knock on doors.
Which we're good at.
Yeah.
I know. It's like we're talking to a door-to-door community. So it's funny because it's such an interesting principle. I went to some real estate classes, and they talked about, they're like, well, we send out mailers and emails, and I was like, well, what if you just want to go knock doors? They're like, oh, that's for the ambitious. And I'm like, I'm a door knocker.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I do. I'm like, our community, we knock doors. And so you have a leg up in the sense of we're willing to do what most people aren't even willing to do. Yeah. So essentially
the conversion rates are way bigger because now they have a human they're talking to, not a postcard in the mail that they're like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah. He wants to buy my house.
Yeah. You can gain trust because you're there and you're just being honest. Like, look, I'm really just looking for something to buy and to find win-win. If you're looking to sell, I'm looking to buy. Would you talk to me about it? Like, who's really angry at that? I'm just not looking to sell. Thanks for coming by. Yeah. The end. It's not like they hate you. You're not selling religion or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a lot easier of a deal. And it's amazing. 2 of my best investments I've ever done have come like that first Fourplex I talked about from a client. They came to me with the purpose to sell, and I made them an offer like here's a buy now price, but you can get more. And I've done that twice. And both times those clients, even though they would have made more, just wanted to sell without the hassle. And I bought them, and both of them were awesome wins for us as well. And they were super stoked because they just got out of the deal. Yeah. So there's quite often people are willing to walk away from some money as long as you're honest and say, look, like you probably could get more, but I'm just looking for a simple win-win deal. People are like, great, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just get the deal done.
That's awesome. So we're kind of running out of time. So I'm going to ask 1 or 2 more questions. Sure. But I've honestly, this has been fun. I love, I'm very passionate about real estate, and it's fun to, those that are listening or watching don't realize, Steve has done multi-million-dollar deals, over the last few years, and, we're sitting in his office, which is, dope. There's a fish tank right here. It's the size of my room. But, no, so it's been awesome and an honor to be, able to do this podcast together.
Thank you.
And for those of you guys that are going to Door Con, he is one of the keynote speakers, so he's going to be, diving a little bit more in some structure to this on really how to invest into real estate in multifamilies and whatnot. So make sure if you haven't gotten a ticket to Door Con, go to ddcon.com, go register. It's the 26th, so we're super excited to hear you speak to our community. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I love talking about this. Hopefully you can feel my passion.
Yeah,
it's something that I love. And it's a game changer. I mean, people's lives are truly changed when they do the right things with real estate. And there's a lot of misinformation, bad information that's out there. It's get rich quick, do things with no money down. And let's be honest. I mean, anything good takes a little bit of pain and some process to make it great. And so real estate's the same way.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and the advice that was given is, don't listen to advice from somebody that's broke. Listen to some advice from people that have lots of money. And, I was walking by the parking lot, and I see the fig sticker on the back of the Tesla, and I'm like, he's the real deal, guys. Like, he does okay. But it's such an interesting principle. Like you said, it's just, there's a lot of people that think that they're the know-it-alls, but it's like, what have they done? Right, yeah. And that's always the first thing to look at. And when I went and shopped realtors, and I've used multiple different realtors, you and Jimmy and other people, and it's like I simply say no to a lot of people because I get hit up like, hey, let me sell your house, or let me help you get into another deal, and it's like, no, you're not that, like, you don't get it like these guys, right? They've done a lot. Like, you go to the expert, which I really love that advice. So last kind of question is, if you had to give any advice to the door-to-door community? I mean, you've worked with a lot of door-to-door reps and managers that have bought your units. But, like, knowing our industry a little bit, what advice would you give our community?
Yeah, be the person you want to do business with. So it's not a one-way road. If you can't create win-win or aren't really truly interested in the win-win, then you're always going to end up with dead ends. You may make a lot of money, but it's very unfulfilling. And seeing other people win in the process and bringing people along with you that succeed together and not being so cutthroat that you're just simply hurting people along the way is always the better route. Like, it's going to be more fulfilling, it's more enjoyable, and you gain a lot of friends. No one wants to die and have no one at their funeral because they didn't make an impact to people. Making money, my business partner often says, Steve, there's no luggage rack on a hearse. So you're not going to take it with you, so you may as well impact some lives along the way.
That's powerful. It's funny because I remember when we first met, you probably don't remember this, but I'd asked you, I was like, hey, have you done any business with like the door-to-door people? And your initial response was like, no, they're kind of like always in it for them. I'm being honest. Like, but it's funny you say that. It's like, a lot of times we fail to say, look, there's got to be meat on the bone for you guys. There's got to be some integrity there. There's got to be a win-win. And I think a lot of times we get in the habit of, like, when we're trying to invest, it's like, how do we get the best deal, and how do we weasel out everybody else and get, and I haven't been perfect at that by any means. But what I'm saying is, it's interesting that you said that advice, because I do remember the advice you gave a few years ago is like, hey, like, we all have a job, we've all got to make money, and as long as it's a win-win, like, everybody's going to be happy. And it's cool that you built, like, your business on that foundation, because obviously that's what kept you growing in this route of mass, like, growth over the years where you can't even keep up with the growth.
Well, it's interesting. People will say, like, why are you selling it so cheap? And then others will be like, why are you screwing me? I mean, it's just it's so funny.
Exactly.
And yet they, they'll have all this equity, and people will say, well, why don't you sell it for more? And it's like, well, because we made what we wanted to make out of the deal. Like, we genuinely, I know some people would say you're a moron in business, but it's like, man, do you have a line waiting for your business and for 2 and 3 and 4 years? Because I sleep really good at night, and I have plenty for my needs, more than I deserve. And so does everyone that we work with.
Because you're not trying to jack up the market.
And so we just want to grow together. I mean, we want to grow with our clients. And they end up with a little more equity than we make in profit when we sell it. That's cool. Like, that's really cool because they tell all their friends. And I've got 5 new clients waiting for us when we're ready and can actually build the dang thing. So, so it's been great. I think the win-win is all where it's at.
Powerful. Well, I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah,
this
has
been awesome.
Thank you.
And we'll see you at the end of the month.
Awesome.
I hope you have a good January, and this has been awesome.
Yeah, make 2018 the best.
Yeah. See you guys.